Hello everyone, in this video we are going to be looking at the newest kid in the examination block, which is the executive assessment. We are going to be looking at what are the features of this executive MBA and look at it side by side with the GMAT. The executive assessment is a test again offered by the GMAT for programs in business schools, specifically targeting the executive MBA program, right. So, title is GMAT versus EA. It's not really versus, it's GMAT and EA. We're going to be looking at both. We're going to look at who should take what, should you take the EA, should you take the GMAT, what kind of schools accept it, how many schools accept it, is it a program that you should jump ship to from GMAT. We'll look at all of that in this video. Let's get started. Before that, why this executive assessment at all, right? Executive assessment was targeting people who are busy executives, mid to late career professionals, which are essentially middle to senior level management people, who probably are in their mid 30s and upward, who are looking to do an executive MBA program, typically outside India, right. Why this at all? See, last time someone of this age profile did any structured learning would have been in their undergraduate or probably postgraduate education, which is probably when they were 20 or 21, and right now they are 35, which means 14-15 years is a gap between sitting through a classroom and learning something which is in a structured fashion. GMAT examination at some level, if you are very close to having left the academic part of your life, right. For example, you are 24, 25, you are probably that much better off doing the GMAT well than when you are 35. Not because 35 plus people are not sharp, it's primarily because when you are 35 plus, you are a middle to senior management professional. The pressures and the demands of your time, both professionally and personally, is much more than someone who is probably 24 to 26, right. 24 to 26, you do a good job, but in terms of the management hierarchy, you are likely to be in the junior management hierarchy. And many of you may not have too many time commitments on your personal life. So, you will be able to invest anything from 300 to 400 hours to prepare for the GMAT and score a 720 plus. Whereas someone who is in the mid to senior level management career, right, at that time looking to take another 300 hours of your life over a 3 or 4 month period is going to be an arduous task. It's not going to be possible for most people. So, then what happens? So, if they are not able to invest that kind of time into preparing for the GMAT, and GMAT is an examination that is required to get an admission into an executive MBA program, it tended more often than not that the average or the median GMAT score from the same school, pick any top school, the same school, the average or the median GMAT score for the 2-year or a 1-year flagship MBA program, which is typically the GMAT is taken by the 24 to 28-year-old kind of people, would be of the order of 720, 730 or 700 plus. Look at their same school and look at their executive MBA program, you will find that the GMAT score tended to be closer to 600 or probably lesser than 600. So, if you are using the same GMAT as a benchmark to compare these two, leaving all other things out, it kind of painted a picture as if people who are getting into the executive assessment program are not competitive GMAT wise, which obviously is not true. They have not been able to invest as much time. So, but if you have things that can be compared on a like to like basis, like both of these are apples, right? GMAT here 720, GMAT here 590, then this program looked as if it took people who aren't competitive, which is not the case. And to kind of take that stigma out of it, they decided for these people who come with time constraint, who come with skills which are different from what skill sets are tested for a regular MBA program, they introduced a new test and had it on a different scoring scale, which essentially meant that people who are going to get into executive MBA program are now going to compete on a completely different scale and a parameter, which is not like to like with the GMAT. That's the idea behind getting this executive assessment into place. Let's do a quick like to like comparison. I'm going to look at it row wise and see how it compares to the GMAT, right. The executive assessment test has got 3 sections, GMAT has got 4 sections. 3 of these sections are common to both, which is integrated reasoning, quantitative reasoning and verbal reasoning. They are the same. GMAT has the essay section, which is an analytical writing assessment or AWA, whereas EA does not have it, right. So, in terms of sections, this is what it is. In terms of test duration, it's much shorter. This examination is 3 hours plus 3 hours 7 minutes, not taking into account the breaks that you take. The exact testing time is 90 minutes, 3 sections, 30 minutes each. Number of questions is 40, you have double the number of questions, right. You have 12 integrated reasoning, 36 verbal, which is 48, plus 31 quant, which makes it 79. I am taking this question of AWA, the essay, as one question, so that makes it 80 questions, twice as many questions and roughly a little more than twice as much time. So, GMAT is more time intensive, more questions to answer, right. Test fee $350. If you are probably applying for an executive MBA program, I think GMAT thinks you need to be able to pay a little more. So, $350, and here the test fee is more competitive at $250. We will look at the section adaptive and item adaptive in a while. scoring on a section wise basis, integrated reasoning, verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, all are scored on a scale of 0 to 20, and the overall score, total score, is on a new range of 100 to 200. In this case, it's 0 to 60 for quant and verbal, it is 0 to 6 for AWA, and 1 to 8 for integrated reasoning. The overall score is on a range of 200 to 800, and this 200 to 800 is determined based on your scores in the quant and the verbal section, whereas here the scoring includes all three sections. So this is basically about like comparing it on a like to like basis. What's the difference between the two? Let's spend a minute on the section adaptive and item adaptive. Let me start with item adaptive because GMAT has been around for a long time. Item adaptive is basically this. It's two of these sections in the GMAT are item adaptive, which is quant and verbal. For example, the question number 4, what question is shown to you in either quant or verbal, is a function of the correctness of your answer to question number 3. If you answered question 3 right, question 4 is going to be, let's say, question 4a. If you answered question 3 incorrect, they're going to show you 4b. Essentially, what would happen is if you answered 3 right, because it's an adaptive engine, question 4 is going to be of a higher level difficulty and would therefore fetch you more points. If question 3 had been incorrect, then the system or the algorithm determines that you are not doing well at that level of difficulty, and it's going to scale down the level of difficulty, which means the kind of points you'll earn for a lower level difficulty question is going to be lesser. So it's item adaptive. Every single question is going to, the correctness of the answer to that question is going to determine the level of difficulty or what question is shown to you next. Whereas in the case of EA, it's a little different. This section adaptive works only for quant and verbal, again not for integrated reasoning. The quantitative and verbal reasoning section each has got 14 questions, and these are divided into 2 sections of 7 questions each. So you'll have quant section 1, quant section 2, verbal section 1, verbal section 2. The number of questions that you get right in verbal section 1 will determine what kind of questions are shown to you in verbal section 2. If you got many questions right in section 1, section 2 is going to be tougher, therefore you get to earn more points. If you got lot more questions incorrect than that were correct in this section 1, section 2 is going to be easier. So it's section wise adaptive. So the quant 14 and verbal 14 are divided into 2 subsections of 7 questions each. The first 7, how well you do, is going to determine the kind of questions that are shown to you in the second 7. That's the order of difficulty or the level of difficulty of section 2 is a function of the level of difficulty of section 1, right? So every question it adapts section wise, and both these cases the adaptiveness is only for the quant and the verbal section, right? So we have clarity on what we are talking about. Quickly run through the sections. IR section exactly the same as the way it is tested in the GMAT, except for the scoring points, right? 4 types of questions appear. Graphic interpretation is a pictorial representation of data and a question that follows it. I'll move to the third and then come back to the second. Table analysis, tabular representation of data and a question that follows it. 2-part analysis. Essentially, you have a question stem. The question has 2 parts to it, part A, part B. Quite often, the answers to part A and part B are linked and they are umbilically tied to the question stem. You need to get answers to both parts right to earn credit for this. So that's what a 2-part analysis is. If you want, visit Wizako's question bank, Wizako's FAQ section, you will find an example of an IR question for you to solve and figure out what a 2-part analysis is, right? And then last one is multi-source reasoning. Multi-source reasoning is more than one source of data, and you have to answer questions based on that. Typically, you'll have 3 sources of data. Because you're processing more sources of data, you tend to get questions as a group. You'll get 3 questions to answer for this MSR, multi-source reasoning, right? For example, graphic interpretation is question number 6, 1 pictorial representation of data followed by a question. Whereas this multi-source reasoning will be questions 7, 8, 9 in a group of 3 because you're processing more data, right? Scoring on a scale of 0 to 20, there are 12 questions to be answered and the duration for this is 30 minutes. So that's about this section. The second one we're going to be looking at is the verbal reasoning section. Areas tested exactly the same as what you see in the GMAT. Reading comprehension, critical reasoning and sentence correction. Duration is 30 minutes. Number of questions is 14, divided into 2 subsections of 7 questions each. As I mentioned, because it's section adaptive, how many questions you get right, how well you do in the first section is going to determine the level of difficulty of the questions that you get in the second subsection, right? Scored on a scale of 0 to 20 and you have 30 minutes to answer this, right? Let's move on to the third one, which is quantitative reasoning. 2 types of questions appear to you. One is problem solving, which is a question followed by 5 answer options. like the typical quantitative aptitude test that you would have seen in any examination that you have written in the past. The second one is data sufficiency, which is a beautiful set of way of testing the quantitative concept, tested both in GMAT. In GMAT, about a third of the questions in the quant section are basically, third to 40% are basically data sufficiency question. The same thing happens in the case of EA as well. What is typically tested? Arithmetic, algebra, word problems in these, and a little bit of geometry as well, right? Time limit is 30 minutes, 14 questions divided into 2 subsections of 7 questions each, right? Again, section adaptive, right, on a score on a scale of 0 to 20. That's about the section. Quickly take a look at the scoring once more in detail. All 3 sections are scored on a scale of 0 to 20, moving in increments of 1. The final score is on a range of 100 to 200, and it basically combines score from all these 3 sections: integrated reasoning, verbal reasoning, and quantitative reasoning, equally weighted, right? So that's how your final score is obtained. It's a comparative score. Too early to talk about comparative score in this, but give or take, any number which is 160 plus is likely to be a comparative score if you're applying to using the EA program, right? Next comes, right, what all should you go for EA or should you choose GMAT? What would determine what all questions you should ask and answer before choosing one or the other, right? Which schools are you applying, right? The schools that you're applying to, do they accept EA as a test score for the program that you are applying to, right? Which schools, which programs, and in that program, is EA an accepted one? If EA is an accepted one and you are not having adequate time or the capacity right now to basically prepare for the GMAT, EA is an easier examination, both based on the number of questions and the amount of time that you have to invest in terms of preparation. So which means EA could be a better choice, and you might be able to score a lot higher in EA than you might be able to do in the case of GMAT, right? So check the programs that you are applying, check the schools that you are applying, check out whether EA is an accepted score for that program, right? Second one, is your GMAT score already comparative? Some of you may have taken the GMAT probably a year back, 2 years back, and the GMAT score is still valid. It's valid for 5 years. In that case, check out if the GMAT score is 650 and above, right? It would be comparative for most EA programs and most other programs too, right? So in that case, you probably do not want to take the EMBA, I'm saying EA MBA programs will be comparative. You probably don't have to take the EA at all again. It's just sufficient that you can go with your GMAT score. So if you're taking the GMAT already, but 650 plus, my recommendation is you wouldn't be required to take the EA. So these are the questions you need to ask and answer. Is it a popular enough examination? Do schools really accept it? A lot of schools accept it. 100 plus schools for a variety of programs accept it. And these includes the names such as Stanford, MIT, London Business School. So we're not talking about some random schools, we're talking about the best of the best schools accept this score. And in quite a few cases, they're not just accepting it for their EMBA programs, they're accepting it even for their full-time and part-time MBA programs. So go check out the website of the respective schools, check out if EA is a score that's accepted. If it's accepted for a full-time program and you're going to be applying to a few EMBA programs and a couple of 1 or 2 or 4 or 5 full-time programs, and all of those programs end up being programs which accept the EA. EA is a far easier examination to crack than the GMAT is, and you might be better off doing this, right? So I think being able to give you a perspective about should you go for EA, should you go for GMAT, and the differences between the two. Net, if you're preparing for the GMAT, keep this in mind. You'll require about 300 plus hours of preparation. I would say give or take about 100-120 hours of preparation should suffice to get a comparative score when it comes to the executive assessment test, right? So with this perspective, we'll call this video an end. Before you go, I'd like you to subscribe and follow us on these social media platforms. If it is YouTube, the handle is Wizako. In all other social media platforms, Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, we are on this handle, which is Wizako GMAT. You can reach us on this phone number 9500048484, right? Just you want to talk about how your preparation right now is, what stage you are preparing. Should you start the preparation now? Should you wait another year? Is it the right time to quit a job? Is it better to take a sabbatical and then go and do an EMBA? Any of these questions that you might have, just call us. We have a slot where we have one of our senior student advisor spend about half an hour with you to help you understand where you stand and guide you. That's not a sales call. That's purely to help you structure your path going forward, right? Best wishes for your GMAT or EA preparation and your journey into an MBA, whether it's a full-time MBA or an executive MBA. Do it from one of the best places. Nothing to beat a great business school to graduate from. It's not just the degree, it's not just the brand. It's quite a lot going in there. We'll do a video on what do you get from a top business school subsequently, and I'll share my experiences of my students, experiences of my peers and colleagues, what all have they achieved by going to good business schools. Till then, best wishes.